Hi, I'm astrologer Penny Dix and welcome to another Astrobite. And this one is another and slightly deeper look at Uranus. Uranus, our planet of innovation, invention, aviation, astrology, awakening, and also, of course, it is all about surprise and the unexpected. It's electric. And on the 7th of July, it moved into Gemini. Now, this is just a little kind of taster for Uranus in Gemini. Uranus is just going to have a look round, see the lay of the land, then he's going to pop back into Taurus for a while and then fully re-enters Gemini next April the 27th, 2026. But in this video, I thought you might like to know how your sun or your moon or any of your personal planets like Mercury, Mars, Venus might be affected over the next 7 years, whilst Uranus will come up and be conjunct each of these particular cosmic bodies if you have the sun, the moon, Mercury, Mars, or Venus in the sign of Gemini. So let's have a look. First of all, let me just remind you of the dates, because what's going to happen over the next few months, couple of months, because actually Uranus is only going to stay in Gemini this time till November, the 9th, in fact. Uranus turns retrograde on September the 6th at only 1 degree and 27 minutes and will re-enter Taurus for a few months on November the 9th, 2025. Then Uranus will go direct again in Taurus on February the 4th, 2026, finally entering Gemini for just under 8 years from the 27th of April, 2026. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to start actually with the moon, then I'm going to do the sun, and then I'll do, I think it's Mercury, Mars, and Venus. I think I'm doing it that way round. And because I've learned how to timestamp, I'm going to timestamp each of these little sections so that if you've got Mercury in Gemini and want to know how Uranus is going to affect it, you can just go straight to that. Genius. I've just done it. Now I know how to timestamp. I'll be timestamping everything. I hope I haven't forgotten. No, I won't have forgotten. But Uranus is in Gemini now. So is my Mercury. But enough of that. Let's start with how will Uranus in Gemini affect you if you have your moon in the sign of Gemini. So this is for the moon in Gemini when you were born natally. Well, we have to think of these two energies to start with because, of course, the moon is a very emotional, empathic, intuitive cosmic body. And this is a powerful astrological influence. And because Uranus is the planet of awakening, waking us up, conjunct the moon, you might find that you actually awaken on quite a deep emotional level. You might find that you are quite rebellious in the way you think about things, so that the way you used to think about your beliefs and ideas about freedom, for example, change. And maybe they're changing because they're reflecting and going with the flow of what might be unfolding on the planet. So I think with Uranus conjunct the moon, there's a redefinition of your inner world, how you relate to others, how you allow yourself to enable others to feel safe in your company or that they belong. And what I think will be most prominent is there will be quite a distinct way of thinking with Uranus conjunct the moon. And it will bring out a curiosity in you to really explore subjects and topics which are perhaps moon-based in the sense of home, family, DNA, ancestry, that you've not perhaps looked at before. But of course, we have to remember that Uranus is a planet of sudden enlightenment and sudden action. So this can be sudden emotional shifts. This can be a real breakthrough in your emotional awareness, so that something perhaps that you struggled with for years and years and years, you suddenly think, why didn't I see that before? Why am I being so harsh on myself? Why don't I actually look at how I can use this newfound awareness to create a much stabler home life for me, or connection within my own family and close friends? I think there can be, with Uranus conjunct the moon, depending of course where it is in your chart, will determine the life area that is being affected. So remember, this video today is very general. And if you wanted to have a little bit more of an in-depth look at Uranus over the next 7 years in your chart, why don't you get in touch with me for either a follow-up reading or a first reading, natal chart, transits and questions. And you can find me on penny@pennydix.com, and you can email me at penny@pennydix.com, and I will respond and let me know your time zone so that we can work out when and how we can meet. Also, I think the moon in Gemini, with Uranus becoming a conjunct it, means you'll want to be more emotionally independent. I suspect you will be rebelling against anyone who tries to impose their rules or parenting ideas in whatever form that comes in that general genre. You see, Gemini, remember, is a sign of intellect, curiosity, communication, but also flexibility. Gemini is air. Gemini is mutable. Gemini, with Uranus here, Uranus, of course, rules Aquarius, so it is an air planet. And so this energy means that Uranus, when it activates the moon here, can be in quite specific ways. So there can be an emotional awakening through ideas. You might have flashes of insight about certain things that went on in your childhood, habits that give you suddenly a new awareness and understanding of perhaps what was going on in the family home and how it affected you. Some of you may seek help from a counselor or therapist at this time to understand some of your childhood issues, because I think that the Uranus energy is going to bring a liberation from the emotional conditioning that you grew up with. So you can break free of these internal family narratives that perhaps have kept you a bit limited and stuck. So Gemini will give you the tools to analyze these things and be able to really get in touch with the authenticity of your truth and your part in the family, for example. I think you'll find that you will be more honest. I think you may experiment with how you express yourself through maybe writing, even public speaking, and through communication in general. And I do think that, as I said just a few seconds ago, therapy would be a wonderful use of this energy for you to really understand your past patterns and how you got to where you are now. You will find that you are restless. You are hungry for mental stimulation. You want variety. You don't want same old, same old. And you'll want to do things that are spontaneous. You know, Gemini is very much about short journeys. And short journeys, of course, can mean anything nowadays to an hour's plane ride. So don't think of it as just a few miles up the road. Think of it as perhaps a short journey in that sense. And I think you'll want to be meeting new people. You will want to be stimulated by the interaction you can have with new people. But people have got to be a bit wary about you because you might be a little unpredictable. Your moods might change. People might not quite know which way you're going to react or respond to information that they bring to you. And you might find that the Uranus energy makes you a little bit nervous and that you can't quite collect all your thoughts together in an easy way. And sometimes what happens with this, with Moon in Gemini, is that the Gemini Moon tends to disconnect, to avoid, so that Uranus is going to stand in your way in a sense and go, oh, no, you've got to face this. And Uranus will bring an event or an unexpected confrontation with someone where you have no choice but to actually explore this issue. You may find that your sleep patterns are affected whilst Uranus is conjunct your Moon in Gemini. And so it's important to get enough rest if your mind is overactive. And it can heighten anxiety and cause you to be a little bit erratic with your sort of energy patterns. So we don't know, obviously, individually, it is about which part of your chart it is in. So that is really too much to put into this video. So this is very much the headlines. But I think in general, it's about being open to changing your mind about the past and journaling, writing down how you feel, writing your dreams down. You may have extraordinarily informative and life-changing dreams at this time. And if you are finding that you're getting emotionally overwrought, ground yourself, walk in nature, do some breathing exercises. So, you know, it is important to find a way to just kind of navigate that. Also expect the unexpected with home and family, because of course the Moon is home and family. And don't be afraid of being emotionally unconventional, because you will be changing through this transit. And we're all going to notice or see and experience a very different Moon in Gemini person. So there's a mantra that you could use, Moon in Gemini. I free my emotions through understanding. My mind is a gateway to emotional evolution. There we go. That is the Moon in Gemini and how it is going to feel when Uranus comes up to be conjunct it. I think you have to, as an orb with degrees, if you know your chart and know a little bit about astrology, probably an orb of only 2 degrees either way, I would say, for it to really kick in. And I say, if you want a session where we can look into these things more deeply, let me know. Now let's move on to Sun in Gemini and what happens when Uranus is conjunct the Sun in Gemini. Well, I've just experienced the Sun conjunct or Uranus conjunct my Sun in Taurus. And that has been, I think, invigorating, life-changing. I've changed, my whole ideas have changed. And I know the changes are still ongoing and are not going to stop yet. So this is going to wake you up big time, Sun in Gemini. Your identity, purpose, your self-expression are really going to be brought into focus and give you opportunities to break through who you thought you were, to challenge who you thought you were. You might find others will be challenging who they thought you were. And this is about setting yourself free from the outdated ideas that you've had about who you think you are, and also what others have been projecting onto you. You know, because the Sun in Gemini encompasses the Gemini traits of flexibility, curiosity, intellect, communication, you're just going to be firing on all cylinders, Gemini. And so I think you're going to get huge revolutionary ideas with Uranus conjunct your Sun in Gemini. How you express yourself will undergo enormous change. You will have creative and intellectual breakthroughs. You will surprise people with the ideas and the inventions or inventive ways of doing things that you can come up with. And if you are in the media, wow, this is really, really going to absolutely be a game changer for you. Writing. If you want to write that paper, book, blog, or you may already be doing a lot of writing, make the most of this energy of the Sun conjunct, of Uranus conjunct your Sun, because this energy is phenomenal. It is really, really going to propel you into the public eye, I would say. And there's a sense here also of you may even surprise yourself with the different type of path that you choose to take, where you will break with tradition, just throwing everything out, literally upturning the apple cart. Just be careful you don't throw that proverbial baby out with the bathwater, because you will be rebelling against the expectations that others have of you, even the expectations you have of yourself. So I think you're going to have enormous energy, Sun in Gemini. I think what you have to be careful of is that you don't overextend yourself, exhaust yourself, and that Uranus doesn't surprise you with something unexpected that slows you down, especially if you have a Saturn transit to your Sun that will also perhaps be aspecting Uranus. So that's something to be mindful of over the next 7 years. So we have to also remember that Gemini is ruled by Mercury. And Mercury is seen as the lower octave of Uranus. Whether it is or it isn't, I don't know. But some astrologers see it that way. Mercury underlines that Gemini is about communication, thought, learning, being versatile. Uranus is going to underline these themes with thick red crayon and absolutely kickstart them. Ideas that you have you just won't be able to hold yourself back. You will have to get these things done. I think you, as a person, I think your identity is going to really be rebranded with with Uranus conjunct your Sun. Certainly for me, with Uranus conjunct my Sun in Taurus, I would say I've gone through a very subtle, but nevertheless quite life-changing rebranding in many ways, and in my thinking as well, not just perhaps in the way that I might come across. So you might find that you step into a new role as a communicator, a teacher, a speaker. You may find that you're writing books about philosophy and thinking, deep thought. And you're just going to not have any restraints on the ideas and the freedom that you're coming up with. And I think that any long-held beliefs that you've had, like I said, for the moon in Gemini, you'll be reevaluating and letting go of. There will be a sense of beautiful mental clarity. Your appearance may well change. Your lifestyle may well change. And you will find that at the end of this 7 to 8 years, you will be a very different person. It would be very interesting to take a video of yourself on kind of like day one and say, well, this is me today on July the, 8th, which is the day I'm recording this, and how I feel about life, myself, my hopes, my wishes, and then keep that. And then look at it, say at various points over the next 7 to 8 years. Could be really quite interesting. And the challenges that you'll have will be the restlessness and being over impulsive. It's like you want to make the changes, but you want to make them fast. And that can lead to burnout because you're trying to do too much, juggling too many balls in the air, and this will just, dissolve into chaos if you're not grounded. I think you have to be mindful of clashing with authority because you're going to be so full of this exuberant Uranus energy, and your ego will really be sharp. So just be mindful of that. And you might find that you're rebelling against authority of any description, depending what age you are, where you are in your life, what you do, you're going to be rebelling against any form of authority. So just be careful and mindful of that. And you'll even be rebelling at some of the things that you've done that you think, why on earth did I do that? And being perhaps a little bit over self-critical. So try and guard against that as well. Travel plans or plans in general that you have had, I think you will throw them out, and you'll change tack. You'll just look at how you can do things very differently. And your career, personal goals, life direction will more than likely take a very different direction. And where you have to be mindful of your ego is that there may be events, unexpected events that happen that shake you to the core, especially if you've been doing what others expect you to do and not what you truly want to do. So how can you work with this transit, Gemini Sun? Say yes to new opportunities, and especially if they're unconventional or they really resonate on an inner level with something you feel passionate about. Stay grounded through the change and allow yourself to use this energy, which you will have, because it's like Uranus is just going to fire you up. Use that energy constructively and don't jump into things before you've properly thought them through. Make sure your mind is in harmony with your instinct, intuition, and gut feeling. And don't cling to old, outdated versions of yourself or the old ways of doing things. Play around with how you look, how you dress. And, just explore this wonderful energy. There is no doubt that by the end of Uranus's journey through Gemini, you're going to be a very different Gemini baby. So we have a symbolic mantra for you, which is, I'm free to be newly myself. Change brings me closer to authenticity. Right, well, let's move on to the personal planets. So I'm just going to run through Mercury, Mars, and Venus. So some of you might have a stellium here of all of these planets. Some of you might have your Sun and your Mercury in Gemini. That's quite likely. And some of you will have, I, as a Taurus sun, have both Mercury and Mars in my in Gemini. And I also, it's a generational thing, so I've not particularly looked at doing it as a separate video, but I've also got my South Node in Gemini, but at the later degrees of Gemini. But maybe nearer the time for that generation, we'll look at those, or we'll look at some of the outer planets later on. So let's look at Uranus conjunct Mercury in Gemini. Well, brilliant mental awakening. I'm listening to myself with this because this is what I'm going to experience. Or we can have sudden insights, mental breakthroughs, dramatic shifts in how one thinks, communicates. And I think there will be dramatic shifts in how we perceive our reality. Now, I'm seeing that on several levels. We may see truth in those around us, truth in friends, or people, let's say in inverted commas, we thought were friends, but maybe we find out it's not as good as we thought it was. And Uranus will strike like a lightning bolt all the way through to our core. And this will be to wake up the Mercury within in Gemini. This will come in dreams, in thought, perception, because Uranus wants to wake up the whole of the communication center of the person with a natal Mercury in Gemini. So in general, there's going to be electrified thinking, mental liberation, and radical ideas. It's a very potent combination. I think in some ways it is, thinking of myself, I think it's going to be mentally exhausting on one level because of the curiosity and the amazing insights and innovation of the ideas that can come through. And of course, Mercury, as we know, rules Gemini. So there's going to be cosmic downloads, as if I wasn't getting enough already. We will have unconventional viewpoints. And I think realizations that shift our thinking and the collective thinking enormously. And you think of all the millions and millions and billions of people out there who've got Mercury natally in Gemini. What's so interesting about this is that I think it's going to have an effect on the collective, so that the collective will be waking up and have really innovative, different ways of looking at things and different ideas, mental breakthroughs, original, revolutionary ideas can arrive. This is brilliant energy for problem solving, inventing things. We might find there are some wonderful creative inventions that come about from someone with Mercury in Gemini. We could see some wonderful works of art made, or also we could see some wonderful literary tomes written. and poetry, anything of that genre, because the Mercury in Gemini person is going to have flashes of insight and genius. I'm really quite looking forward to this. And it will change the way we see things, because if one's been stuck in mental loops going back and forwards over the same thing again, or he thinks, she thinks, all that mental chatter, this is going to change things. That's going to say, whoop, I've not got time to think about all of that. That is far too time consuming. I'm going to spend my time thinking about new things that I can write about, new ideas I've got, new ways that I can communicate, upgrading my tech skills, writing, teaching, sharing my ideas, really finding cutting edge ways to do my videos, for example. So it will be, I think the Mercury in Gemini person with Uranus conjuncted is going to be embracing any new technologies that come along, new ways of learning, embracing AI. And remember, of course, Uranus is the planet that rules astrology. So we might find that the person with Mercury in Gemini, and that's me, one of billions, a real interest and fascination for astrology comes up, so that if you're not already interested in it, you might think of learning it at this time and trying to add to your knowledge and expand your thinking in that way. I think your mental processes are going to be very fast and very snappy, absorbing, analysing, synthesising all at once. But you must stay grounded. Otherwise, this will lead to overwhelm and burnout. Remember, Uranus is electric, so it burns us if we get too much of its electric charge. So the challenges that Mercury in Gemini has to watch out for when Uranus is conjunct is overstimulation of our mental thinking, anxiety. It can overstimulate our nervous system, and we can feel like we're kind of wired up all the time and find it difficult to perhaps focus and attend to just one thing. Also, there can be disruptions in communication, a little bit like with a Mercury retrograde. We can, if we go too fast at something, cause misunderstandings. And I think we have to be careful how we communicate Mercury and Gemini in relationships, because we might find that the other can't take our speed of thinking, our analysis, and our quick mind as it's leaping from thought and topic to topic. Because Mercury conjunct Uranus is going to find impatience with tradition, with the old ways of doing it, impatience with authority. And there's a danger that what one does is risk isolation, because people think, I don't know where this person's coming from. I don't know what she is talking about. There'll be a restlessness as well with Uranus conjunct Mercury in Gemini. So I think it's important to make sure that one always has enough around that is stimulating. Always make sure you've got a pad and pencil to write, or a tablet, or whatever method you use to write with. We will, Mercury and Gemini people are really going to want the mental stimulation. The danger is, because Mercury is so quick thinking, it gets distracted and doesn't follow through. So with the awareness of that, it's about making sure that you have an ability to stick to one task and finish it. So I wonder what else we might find with Mercury in Gemini, because I think there'll be an urge, even more of an urge for authenticity in yourself and in others. You will speak your truth, whether the other likes it or not. And if you've been keeping your real opinions under wraps or masking your intellectual identity, that will break through. The other areas that you might explore apart from astrology are neuroscience, systems thinking, metaphysics, anything that merges logic and intuition. So I have a mantra for you, Mercury in Gemini. I open my mind to higher frequencies, insights, set me free. So there we go. Let's have a look at the next personal planet, which is going to be Mars in Gemini. So this is for anyone who has Mars in Gemini. I have this too, but it's not till the end of Gemini. I'm about 23, 24 degrees, so I won't experience this for a few years. But this is Uranus conjunct Mars in Gemini. This is high voltage. This is explosive energy, bold action, radical shifts in your drive, in your willpower, physical expression. You know, Uranus is the planet of awakening and disruption. It's liberation, it's freedom, it's rebellion. Mars, of course, that rules Aries, governs assertion, ambition, instinct, sexuality, anger, physicality. This combination is mental. Literally, it's like it's fast moving. It's expressive. It's like you could set fire to anything you touch. Metaphorically, we hope. I think you have to be very mindful that you don't just come out with what you're thinking, because Mars is going to urge you to act, speak, move, do anything that's impulsive or rebellious. And it's there's a sharpness and a quick wit with Mars in Gemini, verbal dexterity, and I like this one, multitasking. And Uranus is going to underline this Mars energy. It's going to enlarge it and bring in the potential for genius or chaos. And that's where we have to be mindful and responsible if we have Mars in Gemini. And make sure that we contain this spark, lightning strike, electric energy. We will be sharp. The mental sharpness will be acute and quick reflexes. I think it can be quite exhausting, this Uranus conjunct Mars. There'll be definitely displays of unconventionality and courage to say it how it is and say what you think and stand up and be counted. You will feel brave enough to do something radically new, especially if you're someone who has, up until now held back and played it safe. You won't be playing it safe with Uranus conjunct your Mars in Gemini. Good God, no. I mean, there's just, you might find that one of the good ways to use this energy, and I have no idea how I will do this because my mobility is not great, but maybe I can use Uranus conjunct Mars to empower me a bit with my mobility. But, physical practices, dance, movement therapies, martial arts, Tai Chi, Qigong, all of these things, anything that allows you to get much more in touch with the harmony and balance of the body, which will be really helpful to ground the overthinking that can come and the determination to get your point across with Mars in Gemini. Communication from Mars in Gemini will be strong, will be bold. Speaking one's truth, being assertive, and being intellectually one step ahead of your game will become a priority. What you have to watch against is anger, irritability. There can be sudden outbursts. You can have sudden accidents, rash decisions, verbally lashing out and then thinking, why did I say that? Being reckless, driving too fast, leaping without looking, and pushing your body and mind to exhaustion. So be mindful of all of that, because, I'm certainly going to have a note to self, watch out for accidents when Mars has Uranus conjunct it in Gemini. We can get into arguments with this energy. We'll be impatient and have a lot of nervous energy. Well, I suppose one good side, I guess, would be that if I'm experiencing all this nervous energy, I will lose a bit of weight. So maybe that's a positive from it. So I suppose, in a sense, it's like with Mars in Gemini, your mind becomes the weapon. So just be mindful of how you talk, write, communicate. Don't do it too fast. Go back and check it. And you will want things to be done quickly. You will not have the patience to just sit back and wait. So the themes that Mars in Gemini brings up is going to be around language, media, transportation, and duality. So really be careful driving your car, if you have one, when Mars has Uranus conjunct in Gemini, because that could be, it's just one can take too many risks. So it is important to work with that. And I think it's just about really being very mindful, being grounded, be mindful of your temper. Don't detonate difficult situations. Find another way to handle it. This is where one has to really find the mature adult and respond and not react. So what's your mantra, Mars in Gemini? I act with inspired clarity. My fire moves with purpose, not chaos. And that actually is the key. Move with purpose, with a well thought through goal, and don't allow that to be chaotic. Well, there we go. And now we have one more personal planet to cover, which is Venus in Gemini. So this is what we can expect if you have Venus natally in the sign of Gemini and Uranus conjunct Venus in Gemini. So this is where we have to think, Venus is about relationships, values, aesthetics. It's how we approach love, all our sort of friendship connections. This is Uranus. This is shaking everything up, waking us up quite radically, disrupting the relationships that we have, but with the thought in mind for them to be redefined. Because Venus is the planet of love, beauty, harmony, pleasure, money, self-worth. And Uranus brings surprise, freedom, innovation, rebellion, breakthroughs. So it can be very mentally stimulating. Communication can be vibrant and positive. But there's going to be a need for the Venus in Gemini person to have variety and flexibility within communication. So Venus in Gemini, anyway, is already curious, flirtatious, talkative, and playful in love. Uranus adds that jolt of electricity, making you crave novelty, freedom, intellectual excitement, and authenticity in your emotional and creative life. So how might we experience Uranus conjunct our natal Venus in Gemini? I don't have this. My Venus is in Aries. You'd never guess, really, like my Leo ascendant. Okay, so positive expressions of Uranus conjunct Venus in Gemini. You might have a really exciting new relationship. You may find you attract or are attracted to unconventional partners. And you might start something which is really exciting. And it will be with someone that, oh, well, I don't normally go for people like this. This is completely outside my comfort zone or my sort of comfy chair. And I think that if you've been stuck in stale patterns or in codependent dynamics, this transit can set you free, and sometimes quite abruptly. So do not be surprised if a relationship that is faltering because it's unhealthy, because it has a lot of codependency in it, suddenly it breaks. That is good, because it lets the way clear, it makes the way clear for something that you are much more deserving of to come in. And the Uranus conjunct Venus can bring you that very person, somebody who is much more vibrant, exciting, freedom-loving. You might find, because it's Venus conjunct Uranus, that your artistic expression really comes up with some unexpected styles and fresh ideas of how to express yourself. So, even if you've never explored, painting or, tapestry or embroidery or any of these crafts, you might surprise yourself with, first of all, you enjoy doing it and it's very therapeutic and calm. And secondly, that actually you're not bad and you do it quite well. So within existing love relationships, I think there will be more mental stimulation, and that'll be coming from the person with the Venus in Gemini. You'll be starting conversations that are perhaps a little bit provocative, a little bit mind-blowing. You might find that communication is the better way to actually indulge in foreplay will be through communication rather than anything else. Because you will need the connection through the mind. Venus wants in Gemini connection through the mind, not just the heart. What about finances? Because Venus can also represent finance. I think you'll find that you have innovative ideas of how to make your money work for you in a different way, especially, say, if this was in your 2nd or 8th house. And I think you will be looking at how you can bring into your environment beautiful possessions that enhance, but they have value. So it's something that you are just transferring the money into, say, a work of art. But it's not like you can't get that money back. In fact, the object, the work of art may increase in value so that you can realize that capital at any time. So what are the potential challenges of Venus with Uranus conjunct Venus in Gemini? Well, it can bring emotional or relationship detachment, instability, anything that is too rigid, consuming, too suffocating will break. It'll fall apart, especially if you challenge it. If freedom has been suppressed, it will break. It will because the Venus person won't take it anymore. They'll say, no, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. So, and it'll be sudden. you'll just find that you actually change. You just don't feel what you felt for that person anymore. And you will look for distance. You'll find a way to just move yourself out of that situation, especially if they try to confine you. You will walk. You'll be restless within existing good relationships. You'll want variety and excitement. And it might be hard to stay committed, or to be, there may be, you may be looking at sort of alternative stimulation through flirtation and just knowing that you are attractive to others. But it's being attractive through the mind, so that your wit and repartee can be extraordinary. And I think you have to be careful of doing anything sudden with this energy that's not thought through. Because Gemini, remember, is about duality. It likes to know it's got a way out. So don't corner anyone with this energy. Find a different way to navigate it. You may even find with Gemini that you have two love options, two ideas, two paths, and you'll be not sure which path to take. But Uranus at some point, probably the final time it hits your Venus, you'll know. It'll either be this or this, but you'll know. So, how do we navigate Venus in Gemini with Uranus conjunct it? Be open, but use discernment. Take the opportunity to have fresh experiences, and take the time to look at them, to really savor them. Respect your need for freedom. It's not wrong to want space. And, if you have got somebody who's a little bit dependent and suffocating, just make it clear to them kindly that you just need to go out and be on your own and have some space. It doesn't mean you're not coming back. It just means you need some you time. Try new art forms. Anything that is a different way of expressing yourself. And this can be in the way you look, in the way you dress. Anything that just makes you feel that you are making yourself anew again. And don't fear any change that comes with regard to relationship. Because if something does end, it's probably that it just wasn't aligned with your deeper truth. But do guard against impulsive decisions with love or money, and take your time. With everything, take your time. So we have a mantra for you, which is, I awaken to the truth of what I love. Freedom deepens my heart's expression. That's beautiful. That's lovely. So there we go. There's a little glimpse to how Uranus in Gemini conjunct either your moon, your sun, or your personal planets can affect you. I hope you have found this innovating and interesting, and that over the next few years it will prove helpful. So on that note, thank you so much for joining me. Please remember, as always, to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you would like to have a session with me to look at how Uranus in Gemini is going to affect you personally, then go to my website, pennydix.com, and email me on penny@pennydix.com. Tell me your time zone, and then we will work out the best time for us to meet. And remember, we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. First session, as you know, has a set price, and then after that, there's another set price, and then they're all negotiable. So, on that note, Thank you so much for joining me. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now. Bye. Bye.